discipline mattered. Big time. Discipline mattered. It left us with a difficulty in expressing our needs. Believing struggle builds character. Every generation survives something. Some survive being loud, some survive being strong, and some survive staying silent. Today we're talking about the silent generation and the baby boomers, and not to drag them, not to blame them, but to understand them. Because a lot of what we're unpacking today, it didn't start with us. It started with people who were just trying to make it through. And before we go any further, let me say this clearly. This conversation is about context, not condemnation.
Welcome to Chirp Session, hosted by AC Thompson.
Welcome to the Chirp Session Weekly Diary Generation Series. I'm your host, AC Thompson. And I like us to first grasp an understanding of the silent generation, okay? The silent generation was roughly born between the late 1920s and the mid-1940s. They grew up during the Great Depression and World War II. That's when my granny was born. My granny was born in 1923. If she was still with us today, she would be over 100 years old. But I digress. Scarcity, loss, survival. They learned early that you don't complain, you don't draw attention, you don't rock the boat. You do what needs to be done to keep everything running smoothly. You keep your head down and you keep moving. Then comes the baby boomers. It's my mama now. They were born between 1946 and 1964. They were born after the war. They were born during a time of kind of rebuilding and optimism, but also a lot of social change as well. They were taught, work hard, build stability. Success equals safety in your home, in your relationship, in everything that you do, in survival, right? Feelings, they were private, maybe even inconvenient. I think that's where we get the hard grannies and the hard mamas from. Those of us who were raised by baby boomers, right? They were taught to outlast pain. Let that sink in for a bit, and that will explain a lot. That will explain why our grannies and our grandpas are the way that they are. That will explain why our mom and our dads are the way that they are, especially coming from millennials, right? Or Gen X. Now, here's where we get honest, respectfully. No disrespect here to any of my elders. A lot of trauma was normalized. They were not careless. It was the culture in which they live. You didn't process pain. You pushed through it. There was no time to sit in it, right? You didn't name exhaustion. You powered past it. You had to keep going. Silence was seen as strength, but silence doesn't mean that nothing hurt. That doesn't mean their feelings were turned out. They felt it. They just pushed past it. They didn't ignore emotions on purpose. They just didn't have permission. They didn't have language. They didn't have that ability to stop and just feel them. Survival came first, not emotions. Healing wasn't a meal, let alone an appetizer. I'm going to say healing was not even on the menu, young grasshoppers. It wasn't. So with that, we start to have more of a clear understanding of our elders, right? This is where it gets personal for a lot of us. Love was often shown through providing, protecting, staying. Daddy didn't leave, mama didn't leave. Sacrificing. Not always through words, not always through emotional presence. Even as my granny got older, I'm going to say this. My mom says she softened as she started having grandbabies. but she still didn't soften enough to where she talked about her feelings. She talked about things that went on in her life. She was very quiet when it came to that. A lot of us were loved deeply. We just didn't always feel understood or heard, right? Discipline mattered. Big time. Discipline mattered. Respect mattered. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. No, sir. But emotional conversations, those were not common. And that doesn't mean our grandmoms and our moms and our granddaddies and daddies, they didn't care. It means they loved the way they were taught to love. And it was hard for them, right? So what did that leave us with? So for many of us, it left us with a difficulty in expressing our needs, right? Guilt around taking rest, taking a break, taking a beat, believing struggle builds character, feeling like we have to earn peace and not just create our peace. Any of these hit home for y'all? Because they kind of hit home. We had to unlearn a lot of things, and some of us are still to this day unlearning things our parents never even got a chance to question, right? They didn't fail us, y'all. I don't want you to think that. I don't want you to think that's where this conversation is coming from. Our parents and grandparents did not fail us. They just didn't finish the work. And it's because maybe they didn't have the space or the voice or the language to finish it, right? This conversation, like I said, isn't about blame. It's about understanding where we come from so we can choose where we're going. And we're only just trying to get direction here. Every generation carries something. Healing does not erase our past or their past. It changes what we hand forward, what we project onto our younger generations. Now, the question for you guys, let's take the journal out, jot it down. You don't have to answer it at this moment, but I want you to be able to answer it at some point, because this is where we start the healing. We don't heal to forget. We heal so that we can make some tweaks moving forward, right? What emotional habits did you inherit? What did you inherit from your parents and your grandparents? And which one of those are you choosing to release? Are you going to choose to hold on to them? Or what are we going to release? What are we going to choose to get rid of so we can do better by the younger generation? Y'all think on that, ponder on that, and make sure you marinate in that, okay? If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Chirp Session via your favorite podcast platform. Follow Chirp Session on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X for behind-the-scenes content and to join the conversation. This is the Generation Series, y'all. I love a good series, and this is just the beginning. Next week, we are going to deep dive into more conversations, and we will dive into Generation X. That's my oldest sister now, y'all. We gon' I ain't picking fun, but we gon' touch bases on y'all just a little bit. I hope y'all ready. I love y'all. Y'all have a great day. Have a productive week. Later, Chirpers.
It's extremely hard in those moments.
Host AC Thompson.